Hello, welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome back to today's episode.
Hello everybody, welcome back.
So we are on part 5 of
Shelly
Knotek.
Knotek.
Sorry.
Shelly Knotek, yeah, we're on episode 5. The end is in sight because I actually have finished writing it.
Hey.
So we've got this episode and then one more and then we're done. So episode 6 will be the last one.
Yes.
And I am so
done with her.
I said that to you when I finished. The day that I finished, I messaged Laura and I was like, right, me and Shelly have gone our separate ways. I'm done with her.
We're done.
Oh my goodness.
This has been a deep dive.
Oh. I'll tell you something. I don't think I could do it again. Deep dives are not for me.
Yeah.
It's been
don't get me wrong,
too much.
It's been interesting, because as we've said before, I think it had to be a deep dive on this one because everything's quite relevant. So I understand how it's taken this sort of many parts, and it is interesting, but yeah. I think, let's just get it done.
I do prefer just my one case per episode.
Yeah.
And I'm the same when I'm listening to the podcast as well. I do prefer just when it's all just done in one.
Yeah.
And
but the odd one,
Yeah, this will be the
one.
one off. So,
yes.
Last week we got to Ron Woodworth is living with Shelly now.
Yeah.
He has cut himself off from his... she has cut him off from his family. And he wrote a letter to his mother.
That's right.
Telling him that Shelly had permission to move all his property from her house. And he was basically like, I'm nothing to do with you anymore.
That's right.
So Ron was alone now. And all he had was Shelly.
Cool.
Okay,
so shall we dive back into this one?
We'll dive into episode 5. Yeah, so by 2001, Shelly's mum Lara had retired and she decided to move to Oregon to refurbish an old monastery and to make it into a bed and breakfast and a wedding venue.
Right.
So in July, Nikki called her to say that she was going to move there as well. So Lara was delighted as her and Nikki had a really close relationship. So Nikki arrived, and on her first day there, she got herself a job. But later that night, they were watching a crime show on TV, and Nikki went really quiet, and she didn't really talk for the rest of the night. And the following morning, she went to Lara's office, and she told her that her mum and dad had killed Kathy.
Oh wow!
So she broke down and she told her everything. So that obviously this crime show must have
really got to her.
Yeah. And Lara was stunned. She knew that Shelly was capable of a lot. But murder?
Yeah,
wow.
I suppose you never think that someone could be like that, but yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't believe it, but she had to believe it because she knew that her granddaughter wasn't a liar.
Yeah.
So Lara phoned the police. So the chief of police came over and Nikki told him everything she knew, and he called the sheriff's office that had jurisdiction over Raymond, where the Knoteks lived, which was Pacific County. So Nikki was told to write everything down and then fax it over to Pacific County. So they, so her and Lara sat down with Nikki and wrote everything down, and they faxed over three pages, marked it urgent, and expected a response pretty quickly, but she didn't get one.
Oh.
So Nikki was terrified. This was a massive thing for her to do.
Oh yeah, definitely.
She knew what her parents were capable of, and she just grasped them up.
And nothing was happening.
She obviously wanted her parents punished, and she wanted justice for Kathy and her family, but with not hearing back from the police, she realised that if her parents managed to get away with it, they're probably going to come for her for telling on them. So she actually moved back to Bellingham. That's where she'd been living before she moved to Lara's in Oregon, because for whatever reason she felt safer there. It was away from her parents. It was,
right.
I don't know, she felt safer there. And one night she'd been drinking and she told her boyfriend Chad all about her parents and Kathy's murder, and that she'd faxed Pacific County before moving back there. He told her it was like, what she had done was like dropping a bomb and running away, and that wasn't the right way to get a murderer arrested. He was like, you have to follow up on it. You can't just drop that bomb and run. So he told her that she needed to go to the police and tell them in person.
Right, okay.
But Nikki, she's like, I can't do it. But Chad was like, well, if you don't, I will. Now that you've told me.
Yeah.
So the following day, Chad and Nikki got into the car to travel to Raymond to go to the sheriff's office in person. But on the way there, Chad's phone rang and it was Shelly. Like, Nikki was flabbergasted. Like, how the hell did her mum even get Chad's number? So Nikki took the phone and Shelly on the other end told her that she was planning a trip to Disneyland. Like, what? Like, they were estranged from each other. But yeah, here's her mum phoning her like she'd just spoken to her last week, and she's telling her they're going on a family holiday, her and Dave and Nikki, Sammy, Tori, her and her sisters. And like, Nikki was shaking. She was so scared because she's like, I'm on the way to the police station here, and she's phoning me. Like, what the hell?
Like, that's like a big coincidence, eh?
Aye, but she was just like, right, okay, that sounds great. And then she's like, right, I've got to get off the phone now, and hung up. Nothing ever came of that, by the way.
Well, I wasn't expecting her to be honest.
And I don't know what that was all about. It must have just been a coincidence because she didn't know that she was going to the police. Because you would think maybe she was like, oh no, she's going to the police to tell me to tell on me, so I'll take her to Disneyland. You know,
like that was going to work.
Yeah, but Nikki said later that she was totally freaked out, and it was like Shelly knew what was going on, and she was like trying to reel her back in, and the timing was just incredible. Like, as I said, she was on her way to the police to tell on her mum for murder.
Like a mother's intuition, maybe.
Aye, because her mum phones and invites her on holiday. It's just weird.
Bit weird.
So Nikki called Sammy, her sister, and told her that she was on her way to the police to tell about what had happened to Kathy. And she also said, I think Mum had Shane killed.
Oh God, yeah, because
Shane got up and disappeared, didn't he? He ran away.
Supposedly.
So Sammy was shocked. She had been 16 when Shane disappeared, and she believed the story that Shelly had told them about him leaving the bird. Remember, he left a birdhouse that he'd made at school. He'd left a note for their mum saying, I love you, and all this.
Yes, right.
Nikki had said, not Nikki, sorry, Shelly had said that they always seemed to just miss his calls. He'd always just phone just before they came in. So she believed that, but Nikki, she'd never quite believed it. She was like,
Yeah.
Because she knew Shane better than anybody, because her and Shane were like really close. So, and she said to Sammy that Shane would never have left a note. He never had any other time that he'd ran away, because, remember, he had ran away a few times.
That's right.
So why would he that time?
Yeah.
And why did they spend so little time looking for him? Every other time, Shelly would make them search for hours and hours, basically until they eventually found him.
Yeah.
And brought him home. But that time they only looked for like an hour or something. So...
Yes, that sounds a bit suspicious.
It does. So Nikki got back in the car, because remember, she's still on the way. That was just a side, because she'd phoned her while she was on the way. So she got back in the car, and her and Chad continued to the police station, and he waited outside while Nikki went in and told the sheriff's deputy everything she knew about Kathy. And he told, and the sheriff's deputy told Nikki that he'd been out to her mum and dad's house a few times over the past few months making inquiries, as Kathy's family had asked him to, because they were obviously like,
where is she? What's going on?
Yeah, because, the story was that I was just trying to remember. The story was that she'd went travelling with her boyfriend, Rocky.
That's right.
So, but they were obviously like,
Did she though?
Yeah. So Nikki and Chad went home after that, and they actually split up soon after.
Right.
So Nikki felt it was maybe just too much for him, considering what he knew about her and her family now. Her having told on her parents for murder was a massive thing to deal with, and they hadn't been dating for that long in the first place, so she totally understood why he didn't want to be around. And it is understandable. Can you imagine just being dating somebody for a while, and then they're like, oh, by the way, my parents killed this person, so I'm going to go to the police station, and assuming that something's going to happen, there's going to be a big court case. It's going to be all over the papers, all over the media.
Yeah, exactly.
I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to get involved with that.
I get that.
So Nikki, she nervously waited to see what would happen next, but nothing did. As far as Nikki knew, the sheriff's deputy didn't follow up on what she had told him. He didn't speak to Sammy, didn't search the house, didn't even question the Noteks. But he actually had tried to get in touch with Sammy and left her messages, and she heard the messages, but she didn't call him back.
Right.
She thought that Nikki would have told police everything they needed to know, and although she knew everything her mum and dad had done was wrong and they deserved to be punished for it, she didn't want to be the one that put them in prison.
Right, okay.
She decided that if her parents got arrested, then she would talk, but for now, she was like, I don't want to be part of it, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, she's probably scared, do you know what I mean? Like,
And the thing is, with her as well, she didn't see a lot of it. She was a bit younger. Mm-hmm. Her mother was actually, she didn't really get that much abuse herself, so she didn't see a lot of it.
Oh.
And she was scared. She was also scared of the reaction she'd, because she had told her boyfriend, and she didn't like the reaction that she got from him. So they'd been in their dorm having a drink, and they were just chatting about anything and everything, and she told him what had happened, and he just got up and walked out.
Oh, right.
That's the first time she told anyone, so that reaction wasn't the greatest because she felt safe with him. This is a guy that she'd been seeing for quite a while.
Right.
And she thought, well, if he reacted that way, how would other people react when they knew what her mum had done and what her childhood would be like?
Yeah, okay.
Which is understandable as well, because like you don't want to be somebody that everybody's talking about. Talking about your family, and so she went after him, and she got him to come back in. He had thrown up that's what he'd done. He got out, walked out, thrown up, probably a mixture from the alcohol and the fact what she just told him.
Yeah.
She told him everything that she could remember, and when he left later on that night, she totally regretted telling him. Mm-hmm. So she thought it would have made her feel better getting it off her chest, but it actually made her feel worse. So she was like, I don't want to tell anybody else. I don't want to be...
Yeah, no, especially that's it. If your reaction's not good from the first person you told, especially it being someone that you think, would be a good person to tell, then I guess it would put you off telling anybody else. So yeah. I get that.
So for now, even though Nikki and Lara had gone to the place, it just didn't look like anything was being done about it, which is crazy to me. You reported somebody for murder.
Especially when Kathy's family themselves have been worried about her and her whereabouts, and they've not believed that or questioned that she was where they said she was. So, you've got to take that seriously and at least investigate.
It's just very strange, isn't it?
Very.
So, Shelly was still abusing Ron. Excuse me. By this time, Tori was 12 and she saw everything. She had just been a baby when Kathy was there. So she hadn't seen any of that abuse. She didn't know about that abuse because obviously nobody's going to tell her about it once she was older. She didn't know anything about that. But with Ron, she took everything in. Shelly had taken his clothes away and made him work outside in his underwear. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. When he asked for his clothes, she would tell him that he didn't deserve clothes and that he was worthless, so not to ask again. From 7:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, Ron would be outside in his underwear doing things like weeding, feeding the animals, burning trash, and whatever else Shelly put in her never-ending list of things that needed to be done. Mm-hmm. One day, Tori asked Shelly if she had to be so mean to Ron. She loved him. He was Uncle Ron to her.
Yeah.
And she knew he was a good guy and that he totally didn't deserve what was being done to him. And Shelly just looked disgusted. And then soon after, she called Tori to the living room and told her that Ron had something to say to her. So Ron told Tori that he didn't love her anymore, but he was crying, he wouldn't look her in the eye. Obviously, he'd been made
for fuck's sake
to do that. And Tori was devastated. As I said, she loved him. She called him Uncle Ron, and she knew that he loved her too, and that her mum was making him do this. Mm-hmm. And Shelly told Ron that he was never allowed to speak to Tori again after that. So,
yeah, she just gets worse and worse, doesn't she?
So Ron slept on the floor outside Tori's bedroom. So sometimes when she was sure Shelly was asleep, she would sneak outside her room and go and give him a hug. Aww. And he would just sort of smile back at her. They wouldn't say anything. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, totally.
Shelly never left Ron alone at home. Even when she went to visit Sammy at college, she would take Ron along and he would sit in the car, sometimes for hours. While she was in visiting Sammy, he'd be sitting out in the car waiting for hours for her.
That's awful.
I know. Sammy and her boyfriend would see him in the car. Mm-hmm. And each time they could see that he was deteriorating and just becoming a shell of the man that he had been.
Yeah.
they could see that he wore a woman's sweatshirt and he no longer wore any jewellery. But she'd pride himself, you know, he took pride in his appearance before that.
Yeah.
And Sammy started wondering, like, she was like, surely our mum couldn't be doing the same thing to Ron as to what she'd done to Kathy. And later she did beat herself up for not saying something and trying to help Ron.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
When Nikki found out that Ron was staying there, she called the house and left a message on the answer machine saying something along the lines of, you know, I know you've got a man staying there, he needs to leave before history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And Shelley phoned her right back and told Nikki that he was a family friend and that he was really good to Tori, nothing was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And Sammy did actually back her mum up because Nikki asked Sammy as well, but she was only home at the weekends.
Uh-huh.
And although she suspected something was going on, she just didn't want to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And she told Nikki that everything was fine. And she was like, and if it isn't fine, then Tori would tell us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the fact that Tori wasn't telling us anything, then, you know, it must be alright. It can't be that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
But as Tori just knew better than to talk, so she hadn't been telling Sammy what was going on.
Right, okay.
So
Yes.
at this point, Shelley, when Nikki and Sammy were kind of wondering, at that point, Shelley mustn't have taken Ron's clothes yet, because Sammy just told Nikki that Ron had no shoes on.
Right.
But even just with that piece of information, Nikki was like, something's going on. Like, why has he got no shoes on?
Exactly, like that.
He's
that
outside working.
Aye.
So when Dave was home one weekend, he confronted Shelley about Ron's lack of shoes and suggested that they buy him a new pair, but Shelley just kept saying that Ron kept losing them. It's like, how do you lose your shoes?
Oh, shut up, man. Come on.
I don't think I've ever in my life lost a pair of shoes.
No, I mean, it might take me a minute sometimes to find out where I've left them, but I mean, they're always somewhere around. I mean, there's very rarely that would happen, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like he goes anywhere. So, So, of course, Ron did try to run away. Mm-hmm. But Shelley would just grab Tori, they would jump in the car, hunt him down, just as
I tell you
always
what,
done.
her detective skills are pretty damn good, because how the hell does she always seem to find them? Like, where the hell do they just, like, are they in plain sight or something? I mean,
I have no idea, but maybe instead
like, you think you would go to, like a friend's house or a family member's house and be like, no, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, how does she manage to track them down and make them come back all the time? That's just insane.
Maybe she should have been on the other side of the law and she should have been a detective.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
should have put her skills to some good
seems
use.
pretty damn good at tracking people down.
I know. So they would hunt him down, and Tori couldn't understand why they were looking for him. She asked Shelley why. She was like, "Why are we looking for him? You don't like having him there. You're always mean to him. You know, you're always saying you don't want him there. So why are we looking for him when he's run away? Like, surely that's a good thing."
Exactly.
Shelley replied it was because he had marks all over him, and that Ron would lie and say that she'd done that to him, that she'd, you know, made the marks on him, and that they would all get in trouble. So that's why they had to find him.
Right.
And they always found Ron as he just didn't have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he would apologise and promise not to run away again.
That's terrible.
So Shelley was still abusing Tori as well as Ron. One day she made her put an axe down her trousers and do work in the yard because she had accidentally left the axe out all night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it'd be like down her leg, and like that would be a bit uncomfortable.
Well, especially if it like cut it out on that. What the fuck?
Another time, Tori went to bed and she found all the trash from the kitchen and bathroom in it. Shelley had emptied the trash on her bed because Tori had forgotten to take it out to be burned. So rather than just like leaving it till the next day or whatever, you know, she's went and emptied it on Tori's bed. So she took it all out and then she changed her sheets and started to get ready for bed. She took her knickers off and white dust sprinkled out over the floor. From the age of about 10, Shelley would make Tori put this antibacterial powder on her vagina. This stuff burned, and Tori would cry as it hurt so much.
What the fuck?
But Shelley would tell her it was medicine and all girls needed it.
That's just pure evil.
Well, yeah. So is everything that she does.
Well, yeah, I know, but I don't even know why you would even think to do that. Why would you think that that's a fucking good idea? I mean, it's not a good idea, but
well, it's not. I know what you mean.
Why would you think that she thinks that that's something that that is just absolutely crazy. You've got to be really sick in the head for that.
Well, obviously she is, isn't she?
I know she is, but it's just...
So, and when she decided that Tori needed a shower, Shelly would take her outside, no matter what the weather was. It could be freezing, it could be snowing, and she would use the garden hose on her to shower her. And one time she even used the pressure washer on her. So I can imagine that would hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And she's a little girl as well. I mean, it would hurt on anybody, but the fact that she's a little girl, that would have bruised her, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
Because you know the power that you're getting out of a pressure washer. In 2001, Shelly took over the care of James McClintock, who went by Mac. So that was his nickname, was Mac.
Right.
In April 2000, Shelly was hired. So she actually did get off her arse and get a job.
Oh, well.
She was hired by the Olympic Area Agency on Ageing, an organisation that provides home care and assistance for older and disabled adults.
Jesus Christ, she needs to not be doing that job. Fucking hell. Imagine making her, or getting her to do that. If only they knew what she was like.
Well, actually, we already knew she had that job because that's how she met Ron.
Oh, yeah, that's
Because
right.
remember, she was helping a lady who was being evicted and he was helping rehome her cats.
Oh, that's right.
She worked in the Raymond office as a case aide, providing information to clients who called or came into the office. But she never worked as a home care provider. She was office staff.
Oh, right, okay.
But she'd been she got sacked in 2001, so for being unreliable and performing poorly at her job. She wasn't qualified for providing home care, but somehow she managed to take over Mac's care. So I don't know if he was maybe paying her privately or something like that. I think she's maybe met him through the agency, the agency, because she was working in the office and maybe she's got to know him and he said, come and look after me and I'll pay you. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, he was a Pearl Harbor survivor and a friend of Kathy's mum, Kay. So maybe that's how she knew him.
Well, then surely Kathy's mum would not be putting her in touch with fucking Shelly. Considering her fucking daughters.
Well, I don't think she put him in touch. I think they just knew each other. I don't know. Anyway, he was 81. He used a mobility scooter and he had a black lab called Sissy. So Shelly talked about Mac as the father that she never had.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure she did have a father.
Yeah, she accused him of raping her.
Well, aye.
Which she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, she went to the hospital and got checked.
That's right.
But yeah.
Right.
But remember, at another point, I'm sure she talked about not having a mother as well, didn't she? But she had her stepmom, Lara.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the father that she never had, and she really looked after him, making sure that he had everything that he needed. She would tell others how much Mac loved her, and she would go to his house once or twice a day, every day, and she would also call him 3 times a day to check that he was okay. Tori liked Mac. She would go over to his house with Shelly sometimes when she was looking after him, and he was like a grandfather figure to her. Mac loved both Shelly and Tori, and he told Shelly that he wanted her to live with him as his full-time carer, because obviously he didn't know her. But instead, she sort of half moved Ron into Mac's house instead.
Okay.
So she obviously just couldn't be bothered. She's laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
That he trusted her and he loved her and all the rest of it, but she obviously just couldn't be bothered actually looking after him.
Right, okay.
So she got Ron to do the work and look after him instead. And sometimes he stayed at Mac's and sometimes he stayed at the Knotek, so he was kind of half and half.
Right, okay.
Shelley had told Mac that Ron was gay, and at first Mac didn't want Ron bathing him and helping him with his personal needs, but eventually, they worked it out and Ron probably did a better job than Shelley would have ever done.
Probably.
But even though there were spare bedrooms in Mac's house, Shelley made Ron sleep in the basement in a wee windowless storage area. So even when Ron was away from Shelley, she was still controlling him. It's like, how would you know though? But he was probably too scared in case she came over in the morning and found him in a bed.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I know, crazy. Because I was thinking, he might have had a better night's sleep there, but maybe not.
No, probably not. When Lara found out that Shelley was caring for an elderly man, she called the deputy that she'd spoken to before at Pacific County Sheriff's Office and asked him about the Kathy Loreno case. And he told her that it had gone cold. He was in the middle of another case and he would get back to it when he could. Right. So she called her local sheriff's office and they told her to give Pacific County a chance to sort of build a case. As they were probably working on it behind the scenes. So she was like, oh, right, okay. She just wanted to make... Because she's like, she's looking after somebody else now. Mm-hmm. Like, she shouldn't be looking after anybody. She should be in prison.
Absolutely.
And meanwhile, Shelley was totally manipulating Mac, as he had told her that when he died, he was going to leave his estate to his black lab, Sissy. Uh-huh. But then when Sissy died, so she would have to look, basically she was to look after Sissy, and then when Sissy died, Shelley was to inherit his estate. And he made her his power of attorney on the 7th of September 2001. She's obviously good at reeling people in.
Oh, she must be, aye, fuck.
Dave was coming home a bit more often at the weekends, but all him and Shelley did was argue, usually about money or Ron. Shelley would tell Dave that he had to do something about Ron because she'd seen him go for a shit in the yard, or whatever else had pissed her off about him recently, and Dave would just go and hit Ron and tell him not to do it again. By now, Ron just did as he was told. He had given up trying to refuse to do what Shelley told him anymore. He just did as he was told without hesitation. Right. Shelley had made up a new punishment for Ron. One day, Tori heard Shelley shouting at Ron, calling him a prick, and she looked outside to see Ron standing in his underwear, and Shelley was screaming at him to hit his own face with both hands as hard as he could. She kept shouting, harder, harder, and his head was actually like jerking back with the force that he was hitting himself.
Oh my God.
She would continue shouting at him with like homophobic slurs and told him to do it harder, or she would do it for him, and all he could do was just apologise over and over. She told him that he made her sick and that she was an idiot to take him in and that he was ungrateful. But again, Ron just kept saying, I'm sorry, Shelley, dear.
Well, that's just how brainwashed or just scared of him she was.
Mm-hmm. Not long after... Oh, sorry.
Scared of him, he was. I feel like I said that wrong. Sorry.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. But just, I felt like I said that the wrong way now, but anyway. Right,
I'm sure our listeners know us well enough to kind of get what we mean as well.
Exactly, we're just stupid.
So not long after, Shelley found a cup of Ron's pee, and she yelled at him, asking, like, what the hell is that? And he was like, sorry, but I had to go. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to wake her to ask permission. So he just went in a cup, and she told him to drink it.
I knew that was coming. Oh, yuck.
He didn't even hesitate and he drank it all.
Oh, yuck.
One day he was using a strimmer in the garden and it kept like starting and stopping. There was obviously something wrong with it. Tori knew that this noise was irritating Shelley, so she went outside to help, even though she knew she wasn't allowed, because remember, her and Ron aren't supposed to be like interacting with each other. Mm-hmm. But she was trying to help because she knew that it was irritating Shelley, and you know, the more she got irritated, the worse she was going to be. Mm-hmm. Ron was in his underwear as usual, and his bald head and his back were red raw from sunburn. His feet were all bloody and all the skin on his hands were coming off. Oh. On the 9th of February 2002, Shelley called Tori and told her that she was at the hospital because Mac had had a fall and it was bad, so she was coming to pick her up. When she got in the car, Shelley told her that Mac had had an accident. Ron had been there when it had happened and she didn't think that Mac was going to live. When they got to hospital, they were told that Mac had in fact died. Oh, right. Tori was devastated as she loved Mac, but Shelley didn't even bother to try and act sad because she knew what was... Well, she always had to look after the dog, but... So she knew that Mac had left her some money, which turned out to be $5,000. Right. And then once Sissy the dog died, she would inherit Mac's house, which was worth over $140,000.
She made the dog die quicker so that she could inherit it.
I don't actually know what happened to the dog, so don't worry, we're not going into that.
Oh, that's fair.
But she was sure that Sissy wouldn't live for much longer because she was old anyway. Right. Tori again asked Shelley what had happened to Mac. She was vague about it and she said that Ron had made the call to 911 saying that he had fallen and hit his head. The examining doctor did refer the case for further investigation, and it was confirmed that Mac died of acute subdural hematoma caused by a blunt impact to the head. It was possible that the impact could have been from a fall, and nothing more was investigated.
Right.
Sissy was brought back to the Knotek's house, but she was now kept chained up outside, and poor Ron was living back there full time again. Tori once heard Shelly outside screaming at Ron that he killed Mac and that he was a murderer. Ron tried to defend himself, and Shelly pushed him into the dirt and then went back into the house and told Tori that Ron killed Mac and that she couldn't live with the murderer. Well, that's a bit fucking rich, isn't it?
Totally.
Tori didn't know what to think. She thought that Mac's death had been an accident, and she couldn't see Ron hurting anyone, so she didn't believe her mum. And spoiler alert, we don't know. It's suspected that Shelly did something, but
well, it wouldn't surprise me to be quite honest.
But it's never been proved.
Uh-huh.
I mean, for all we know, because she's shouting that Ron was a murderer, maybe she's made him do something, but
possibly.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could have well just been an accident. But I mean, he was on a, he had a wheelchair, he was on a mobility scooter, he could have fell off and hit his head. True. He was an older, he was 81 years old, he would have been maybe a bit more, not, well, he obviously wasn't steady on his feet because he was in a...
Yeah.
So...
But you can't help but be suspicious.
Well, of course, knowing her history.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we don't know, so we can't accuse.
No.
We can speculate.
Yes.
Another time when Ron was sitting at the table with Shelly and Tori, Shelly asked Ron, "How would you feel if you had a murderer living in your house?" Because she's still accusing him of being a murderer.
She fucking is a murderer.
He didn't answer her, even look at her, and she told him that it just didn't feel good, and again accused him of killing Mac. Over time, she just kept bringing it up and kept telling him he was a murderer, and one time he just agreed with her and said, "Yep, you're right, I killed Mac, please don't tell." Whether he said that just to shut her up, we don't know.
Yeah.
One day, Shelly actually decided to tell Tori what had happened to Mac. This was her version, though.
Okay.
But she told her that Mac fell out of his wheelchair and bumped his head really hard, and Ron just stood there and didn't help him. He waited too long to call for help, so it was too late to save him.
Okay.
She then told Tori that Ron was a useless prick and a murderer. But another day she told Tori that Mac had fallen into a coma and Ron left him to die, so he was a murderer. So
who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that could have been what happened. Maybe she did fall out of the wheelchair and bumped his head, and Ron didn't help him and didn't know what to do, and that's why she's calling him a murderer. We just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
So Shelly wasn't happy about Mac's will. She said that the lawyers botched it up. She told Tori that she was going to tell them that Sissy the dog got knocked over by a car and died, and that she had to back her up. And Tori wasn't too bothered about saying that, as it was just a lie. Her mum wasn't actually going to hurt Sissy. She was just going to say that she'd died.
Yeah.
She told Tori that when they sold Mac's house, they could move to sort of nearer Dave, like where he worked, because remember, he works hours away. And they could all live together again. Tori actually thought that would be a nightmare. She hated it when her parents were together because all they did was just yell at each other.
Yeah.
So, on the 19th of March 2002, 9 months after Nikki and Lara had called the police about Kathy's death, she called the deputy at Pacific County again because she'd heard that Mac had died.
Right.
She said to the deputy that there was a good chance that Shelly had killed him, since she was to inherit his house. But the deputy said no, Mac had been old and it had been an accident. Lara said that they should check on Sissy the dog, as Shelly could well be poisoning her or something to make her die sooner rather than later. Lara knows. Lara's like you. Lara knows.
Yeah, she knows.
Because she knew that she wouldn't get the house until after the dog's death. But the deputy said that the dog was fine. Shelly was looking after her. Lara had asked him if he'd spoken to Sammy yet, but he said that he still hadn't been able to get a hold of her. But Lara was like, what the hell? She goes home every weekend to make sure that her little sister is okay, so you could find her there. It's one thing leaving messages, and she's not calling you back, but you could actually just go to the house at the weekend. But he was like, well, what can I do? She's refusing to call me back. So he was obviously not the... Yeah, exactly. Sammy was still in touch with Nikki. And in May 2002, she went to Nikki's wedding at Lara's place where she turned the monastery into a bed and breakfast and a wedding venue. So
she met somebody else and she was getting married?
Yeah, she got married. Because this is 2002 now. This is a couple of years later or whatever. So, but she was like, don't tell. She didn't want her parents there.
Right.
Which is not surprising.
Definitely not.
So Dave and Shelley were working on their marriage. Don't know why. They decided that once they bought a new house and got away from Pacific County, it would be a fresh start. Dave even left her a love letter one day before he went back to work, and he told her how much he loved her and that he didn't deserve her to love him back, and he couldn't wait to get a new place together, as he knew she was stressed out, as a lot of locals didn't think that she deserved to inherit Mac's house and were making it hard for her. They were right. You didn't deserve the house.
No, didn't deserve none.
And he knew that Ron was stressing her out as well, as she was just constantly complaining about him. Mm-hmm. But Tori was worried about Ron because he had lost so much weight and she thought he was ill. But Shelley just told her that he had been fat and he needed to lose the weight. Lovely, yeah. Mm-hmm. Shelley cut off Ron's ponytail, which, he had loved his ponytail, you know. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's why he had it. Uh-huh. But when Tori asked him about it, he said he liked it better without it. But, you know, he didn't.
No, exactly.
He only had one tooth left.
Oh, God.
And he told Tori he was... no. Oh, yeah. He only had one tooth left, and he did tell Tori that he was going to get dentures, but obviously that wasn't going to happen because Shelley refused to take him to the dentist. Mm-hmm. One night in April 2003... Shelley and Tori heard gunshots, which turned out to be somebody shooting out like a neighbour's security light. Right. Don't know why. Right. And the following day, Shelley was looking through the mail and she came across a letter addressed to her. It was a typed note and it said, quote, "The gunshots you heard last night were from Kathy. Like the Lord Jesus Christ, she also arose from the dead and is back to revenge you, ashes to ashes." End quote.
Okay.
Shelley just went pure white and started shaking. She asked Tori if anyone had been asking about Kathy, which Tori thought was weird because as far as she knew, Kathy had ran away years ago with her boyfriend. She didn't know that Kathy was dead. She then ran to the phone and called Sammy. What's her face? Shelley. I can't remember her name there. How can I not remember her name?
I know.
Yeah, she ran to the phone and called Sammy and she asked her, has anybody been, asking about Kathy? Sammy knew that the police had tried to get a hold of her before, but not recently, and she didn't tell Shelley that. She just said, no one's asked her about Kathy, and Shelley told her about the letter. The Knoteks were scared. Shelley and Dave agreed. They were like, Nikki wouldn't have told anyone. So they... So that meant someone outside of the family knew or thought something had happened to Kathy and wanted to know the truth. Mm-hmm. So you would think, we don't find out who this letter's from.
Oh, okay.
But you would think that this letter would make Shelley stop and think that maybe she should leave Ron alone if somebody's onto her. I mean, I'm assuming it was maybe one of Kathy's family trying to sort of scare her to get the truth out of her. Uh-huh. But so you'd think that maybe she would leave Ron alone, if somebody was maybe onto her.
But then I'm not... Yeah.
But no, she would walk around the house with her boobs hanging out of her dressing gown. She wouldn't even bother doing it up properly. Tits hanging out, what the hell?
She's
Nobody
just
wants
vile.
to see that.
Nah, she's just vile.
Shouting abuse at him, punishing him as usual for the slightest thing, and just being her normal, vile self. One day, Ron had fell off the roof. He'd been up there cleaning the shingles and he was lying crumpled on the ground, and you would think that Shelley and Dave would help him, but no, Dave just ordered him to get back up and do it again.
Fuck off.
So Ron climbed back up and then jumped off the roof, and when he tried to get up, Dave hit him in the face and pushed him back down, and then they made him get up on the roof and jump again a couple more times. I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't that high, because he was landing on his feet, so I don't know if it was the house roof or maybe one of the outbuildings or something, maybe it wasn't that high.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kept just making him jump off the roof. And remember, he's got bare feet. and probably in his underwear.
Uh-huh.
And he was landing on, like, sort of gravel or whatever underneath. On another occasion, Tori heard Shelly shouting at Ron to be a man and jump. So she went to see what was happening, and she saw Ron standing on the roof in just his underwear. His feet were bleeding, and he was crying, and this time he said he didn't want to. But Shelly just told him, get on with it, because she didn't have all night. And Ron jumped, landed in the gravel, and Shelly told him to do it again.
Fuck's sake.
She told him he was a piece of shit, and he needed to be punished. Tori couldn't believe that Ron could even walk. She could see that every step he took was agonising.
Uh-huh.
Shelley decided to clean Ron's wounds, and she boiled a pot of water, and she made Ron put his bruised and bloody feet into the water, which had bleach in it as well.
Oh, Jesus.
But yet she still never let Ron wear shoes.
Wow.
She kept making him do the jumping punishment, and his feet would land so hard on the gravel.
How's it not broken his bones?
You made me lose track there. She kept making him do the jumping punishment, and his feet would land so hard in the gravel that his soles would just split open and would be oozing blood and pus. And she would just grab a bottle of bleach and pour it over Ron's feet, telling him to shut up and to stop crying.
That's horrible.
She would sometimes fill the bath with boiling water and make Ron get in it, and one time it was so hot that his skin just started falling off from his feet.
Uh-huh.
And it was only then that Shelley kind of thought,
oh shit,
oh, I've went a bit far.
Really?
And she actually bandaged his feet up for him.
Yeah.
And that night was the last night that he slept outside Tori's bedroom, and he started sleeping either in the laundry room, in one of the outbuildings, or outside on the porch. So he wasn't allowed in the house after that. I don't know why. But I think she stopped making him sleep outside Tori's bedroom was just because it was actually he couldn't manage the stairs with his feet.
Right.
Well, stop damaging him then. Stop punishing him.
Horrible.
And like Kathy, Ron was just getting weaker and weaker, and Shelley actually got worried. In the summer of 2003, she called Dave at work, and she told him that she had tried to make arrangements to drop Ron off at a homeless shelter, but Ron refused to go. She told Dave that she didn't want Ron there, but she was stuck with him and she couldn't handle him anymore. She said that Ron had attempted suicide by jumping out of a tree because he didn't want to go to the homeless shelter. For a couple of days, Ron just lay on the porch, and Shelley kept making him drink whiskey. She told Tori that Ron was sick, but of course he was going to get better. But Tori could see that Ron's feet were so swollen that he could barely move them. Mm-hmm. Shelley said that she was like, right, she was going to take Ron to Mac's house, because they still had Sissy. Mm-hmm. They hadn't got the house. Because when they got the house they were going to sell it, so they obviously hadn't got it yet, but they still had access to it. So she said that she was going to take Ron to Mac's house so he could rest. And Tori was worried that he was going to be by himself. She was like, "How he needs somebody to look after him." But Shelley promised that she would visit him every day. So the next morning, Tori looked for Ron, but she couldn't find him. She asked Shelley where he was, and she said that she'd taken him to Mac's house that morning. But Tori didn't believe that, because they had a gravel driveway and there's no way a car went in or out without being heard, and Tori hadn't heard a thing. She hadn't heard the car leaving, so she's like, no, you didn't. Mm-hmm. So a few days later, when Shelley and Tori were watching the TV, Shelley turned to Tori and said, you can't tell anyone about Ron. She told her that if she told anyone, especially Sammy, that she would disown her and never speak to her again for the rest of her life. She told her that if the police turned up, then she was to say that Ron left and was now living in Tacoma. Tori knew better than to question Shelley, so she just said okay. And after that, Shelley became a much nicer person. She made Tori nice meals for the next few days. She didn't punish Tori in any way. She was like a proper loving parent, like normal parents. Mm-hmm. But whenever Tori asked if Ron was okay, Shelley would just say he was fine and they just needed some rest, so Tori couldn't see him. Right. She said that she was visiting him every day, sometimes twice a day. She said that she was going over at 7 o'clock every morning, but Tori knew that she was lying because she never heard the car leave. And also, Shelley would never get up that early. Mm-hmm. She stayed up all night and slept, till I don't know, sort of lunchtime kind of thing. You know, she didn't. So how was Ron managing alone with no help, and why was Shelley lying about going to see him?
Because I feel like he's dead.
I don't know. We might find out in the next part.
Oh, is that the end of this part?
So that's the end of this part. So next week is the final part. So come back and join us, and we can
wrap it up,
put it to bed, and we can all be done with the monster that is Shelly Knotek.
Cool.
So we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.